Welcome to the Let Me Be Free podcast. My name is Jackie.
And my name is Alwynn.
We're two sisters from Ireland living in Australia, navigating our healing journeys together. And this is our podcast, Let Me Be Free.
Hello, sister, and hello, everyone that is listening. Today is a very special day because this is going to be our farewell podcast episode. And yeah, it is definitely, the right decision because I am just so excited. I am so excited to record this episode. Jackie, how long have we been doing this podcast? I've been trying to think about it. I don't know. It's
We've been doing it just over a year. Isn't that amazing?
Okay, because I was like, was it 2 years or 1 year?
Well, because we were releasing episodes every week for
Yeah.
the first, 6 months or whatever, it probably feels longer because most people, when they come out with a podcast, they don't release every week.
Yeah.
But yeah, for 6 months, we were releasing every week.
We were ambitious.
So yeah, I feel really proud of us. Like, that is a solid effort, given everything that's been going on in both of our lives this year, to be able and willing and capable and have the capacity and the drive to show up that consistently.
Yeah,
I'm really, really proud of it. I feel like we've created this little package of goodness and info that's out there available.
Yeah,
it's almost like creating I imagine it's what people feel like when they create a course.
Yes.
Like they put it out, it's like something that you've created yourself. Nobody else had anything to do with it. It's just you and your sister decided to get on a podcast and talk for a year, and now there's this year worth of content.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, for me, obviously we were really trying to figure out what we were going to do, where we were going to go. And yeah, in I think it was the last week, I was like, okay, I need to think about, what the plan is moving forward. And yeah, it was just felt so right. I was thinking about obviously the group, and I haven't been running the group. Isabella's still been running the group. But, I guess there was this unease within me that, my face and my my content has been all through that group, and that group has essentially been my fucking public therapy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
with the most rawest, most painful experiences of my life. And that was a whole point of the group, and I really appreciated that. But as time has gone on, and I realized in this last week, I was like, that stuff is very private. And, moving forward, I don't want everyone in the world to have access to the deepest, most painful, most raw parts of myself. And, I guess I pride myself in my vulnerability, but I felt like this was a part of, honoring and respecting the girl and the woman that I was in her pain, and giving her the privacy that she deserves. And, so I've talked to Isabel about that, and, saying, if she'd like, she could create a new group, as an offset. But, I'd like to close down this group because, I'm not on it anymore, and I won't be going on it. And yeah, I just didn't feel like it just didn't feel right for my parts, for these wounded parts to be that exposed. We've talked about things on these podcasts, but nothing to the extent of what I shared on that group for so long. And I feel like, and I hope that it really benefited people through that period,
Yeah. I definitely think that I have no doubt in my mind that it benefited people, because really what you were sharing on the Facebook group was what you desperately wanted someone to share when you needed to hear you're not alone, you're valid, you're not the worst human being in the world. Like, this happens to other people. Every time you posted something that was extremely raw and vulnerable, someone else read that and said, wow, I feel less alone in this moment, in this experience. So there's
Yeah.
no doubt that that has helped people in that group. And I also absolutely love what you're doing now, because I feel like you have been very, very much about giving of yourself, of giving of your time, giving of your energy, giving of your private moments, your private thoughts, because you wanted to help in the way that you've helped. And now you're moving into this phase of like, I'm going to wind back here, and I'm going to go more inwards, like less out there in the public sharing the rawest, deepest stuff, and more in here sharing the rawest, deepest stuff with my inner self, with my inner world, with my inner circle. And I feel like in a lot of ways, that's where I see society going. Like, I know that that I always am fascinated by patterns, and I'm always looking at patterns in all of life and including society. And I see this pattern happening in society at the moment, where people are starting to, for example, get less interested in like big celebrities and more interested in like the YouTuber who's being more authentic about their experience on a YouTube page. Or I just see this shift happening from people wanting to expose themselves in that like real public, celebrity type way, and bring it
Yeah.
really to like the people in their immediate community, in their, like in that. I can see how people are starting to start and go. And I don't know if it's because of COVID or if it's just like a societal shift, but they're like going, I'm actually going to go to, what's that thing you were talking about recently? The thing with the crystals. What are those things called?
Which singing bowls or no?
Where you put the crystals on it's like paint by
Oh,
numbers, but you use crystals.
gem, yeah,
Yeah,
gem diamond
gem.
art.
So like I'm gonna go to a gem diamond art class, or like what you're doing, you're like saying to your friends, do you want to have a Zoom call and we'll do some gem diamond art? Like I can see this shift from let's expose myself to the whole world, rather let's bring it right home and expose myself to the people in my immediate surroundings. And
Yeah,
I can see definitely the shift. Like I love that you're doing that. I absolutely love that you've shared as much as you have shared and helped as many people as you have helped over the last couple of years. Because I can see how valuable that has been, and I can see how I was definitely not willing to go to the depths of sharing that you were. I was always very I admired how willing you were to be so vulnerable and expose yourself to things that a lot of people would be shamed for. And now I see you going, actually, I think I'm ready to like close down the group. I think I'm ready to finish with the podcast, and like making this shift to let's just I'm just going to come back to myself for a minute here. I'm just going to start checking in with me here right now, not thinking about how I'm going to help the whole world, just thinking about how am I going to be here for myself right now, and what do I need to do for my people in my immediate environment.
and I think one thing I feel is probably the biggest shift within all of that is, especially this week, I've had just a massive shift in my awareness of how I'm showing up in the world. And, that's really in alignment with everything that you're saying. You know, one thing that's really becoming very clear for me is, the way that I have met my needs in the past, and how that way of being is not going to exist or be functional for me in the present and moving forward. And what I mean by that is, when we're children, and especially children with trauma, even, you don't have to have the severe trauma, but essentially when we're children, we are told, um directly or inadvertently, that our needs aren't, they're not safe. It's not safe to have needs. It's not okay to have needs. And so, I had this vision, the last day, and it's like the way that the vision described this to me was, it's like I'm really, really hungry, and I go to get myself some food from the table, but the people at the table tell me it's not okay to eat. You're not allowed to eat. This food isn't for you. You can't eat this food. And so it's like, okay, in order to fit in with this tribe, with this community, I have to deny that I'm hungry. I have to deny that I need food to eat. And so, okay, I'll do that because I need to survive. But in truth, our needs are non-negotiable. And so instead of outwardly asking for the food, what I decided to do, what my pattern was, okay, well, I can't directly ask for food. But if I make sure that I'm needed by everyone in this community, I will then be able to feed this from the scraps that they throw on the ground. And I will be satiated enough to get through life. And, this has been a fucking awakening for me this week. And it's been very painful and very hard at the same time.
Yeah, that's a very confronting thing to see in yourself.
Yes. And it's very confronting and very painful as well, because so many things, I guess, happened within that. Firstly, I was recognizing how I was really struggling to function, with all of the output of energy that I was giving. The input wasn't matching the output, in the same way that I was never going to be satiated with the crumbs that everyone dropped on the ground. I was never fully hungry. I was never fully full. And so my whole attention is always, how can I get more food? How can I get more food? And in that same way, it was the same if we look at our needs. I looked at, okay, safety. I have a need for safety. But instead of giving myself and being able to feel that safety within me, to harmonize that within myself and find safety within myself, I was never able to find that as a child. So I looked to, okay, how can I feel safe in the world? What I recognized was, I feel safe if everyone around me is happy. So if I make sure that everyone around me is happy, then I am safe. And so I've spent my whole entire life, trying to make sure everyone around me was happy. But I spent so much time and energy trying to make everyone around me happy that I had very little energy left for myself, And so when this really came in strong with my kids, when I had kids, I had kids in order to fulfill my own needs. I had a need for love, a need for connection, a need for worthiness. And from my perception, I believed that having children, they love you unconditionally. Everyone says it, children love their mothers no matter what. And, I was like, I'm going to have this baby and it's going to love me and we're going to be the best of friends. And I'm going to finally feel worthy. I'm going to finally feel good enough. I'm going to finally feel loved. And then the truth of children is they're needy little puckers, they have so many needs. And so now I had these children who I was having in order to fill my own needs, to fill my cup, to fill my voids of emptiness. And instead of filling my voids, they took and 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 they took until I wanted to literally blow my brains out. The problem was not that my children had needs. The problem was that, well, first of all, if you look at safety, I could only be safe if my children were happy. Kids are known for having a range of emotions. And so every time that they had negative emotions, I was like, okay, well, I'm not safe in the world. So I had to fix their negative emotions. I had to fix the pain that they were in. I had to avoid at all costs any suffering that they would ever endure, because their suffering was so uncomfortable for me. I couldn't cope with it. Then on the other side of that, we had the need of love, we had the need of worthiness. And my worthiness was not born within me. That worthiness was not inbuilt inside of me. That love was not built inside of me. And so I was, again, outsourcing my needs. Do you love me? Am I worthy? Am I good enough? You know, they go and, you know, break something and get pissed off because they're having their own emotional experience. They have a need to be seen, need to be heard, need to be held. But I didn't see that, you know, because needs, kids don't have needs. No one has, it's not safe to have needs. So it wasn't okay for them to have needs. And so I saw these reactions or these actions that they were taking as a direct reflection of, I'm not lovable enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not good enough. And so, whereas I was expecting them to fill my needs, they were pulling from that bucket that I had, to a point where I was getting so empty and so depleted that, you know, I got to that point of that mental breakdown. I had no way of meeting my own needs. I was dependent upon everyone in the world. Like, if you look at the group, if you look at the podcast, what is it? It is all my way of, you know, putting energy out into the world so that I can then, you know, filter that energy and bring it back as my own worth, bring it back as my own, you know, deservingness. You know, no matter how I would do that is irrelevant, but the amount of energy that it was taking me to give to everyone in order to get scraps of validation, the scraps of worthiness, nothing was ever enough, you know? And, you know, I realized that in order for me to step forward, you know, into any type of real purpose, any type of real path, I have to be so firm and so strong in my own energy field. And like, that is the turning inwards. That is the, you know, okay, how do I meet my own needs? How do I learn to find safety within myself without outsourcing it to everyone else, you know? And, you know, this has been a massive issue for me in the last few months because, you know, my husband Rob's been really struggling with some stuff. And one of my best friends was really struggling with some stuff. And it really derailed me because I was meant to be strong for them in those moments. But it seemed that every single time that they fell, it was fine if I knew I could help. If I knew that I could make them happy, I felt safe. But in those moments where both of them were like, you can't do anything for me, you can't help me in this, you know, this is mine, I spiraled so deeply into my own fear, into my own lack of safety in the world, that it was just such a shaking and terrifying experience. And I had that conversation with Rob. You know, Rob's always been my safe harbor. He's always been my anchor, you know. And I was saying to him that, you know, I I can't exist like this, where if you fall, then I fucking fall as well. You know, it's not the way it's meant to be. And I was like, I need to be my own anchor. You know, I need to be my own tree with the roots that are strong in the ground. Whereas what I've felt my whole life, I've been a tumbleweed, you know, I've been able to be blown whichever way that it was gonna unconsciously meet whatever need it was that I had. You know, that was what I would do. But there was no solidness in my energy, no solidness in my being. And yeah, it's, you know, one thing this week, when I recognized that I'm outsourcing all of my needs, and I really kind of sat with that, the amount of anger and the amount of emotions and the amount of inner turmoil that came up at not having my needs being met. You know, like visceral pain. It was like I felt like I was dying, because in truth, as children, when you aren't getting your needs met, need for love, need for connection, your need to be seen, you need to be heard, you need to be respected, you need to be safe, you feel as if you are literally dying, because needs are essentially the water, you know. And so when I was feeling that, and it was great, like, you know, yesterday I was at the beach with Bobby and Shay, and I was, you know, they were both quite needy. And I really saw this part of me, because I'm working with this part, I really saw this part of me really get active, you know, and it was very much about, you know, like, you know, suck it up, princess, you know, like these were my internal narratives, you know, like, you know, you think you've got it bad, you know, like, don't be such a fucking baby, you know, get on with it, just deal with it, move on. And I was like, okay, you know, what is this part? And I just saw this little girl, this younger version of me, obviously, and she was hurt. And all she wanted was love. All she wanted was to be comforted. And I could hear her narrative, like what she was saying to herself. And it was like, no one's coming, Alwyn. No one's going to come. You just got to suck it up, deal with it, you know, get on with it. Don't cry. And it was so harsh and it was so painful. But I realized that a lot of the pain and the suffering that I've experienced in motherhood is that I have rejected that my kids have needs, you know. I have tried to essentially manipulate their whole entire existence so that they don't need anything, which is takes a lot of energy. You know, it's like they're walking along the road and I'm there with a brush, you know, dusting any type of obstacle that will ever get in their way so that they don't fall down and need comfort or need anything. Because I was so uncomfortable with that that feeling of, you know, of their neediness, because I was reminded of my own neediness. And yesterday evening when I really sat with it, yeah, it was, I really just kind of was having a conversation with mom in my head, you know, and I was like, you know, I was like, Mom, I had needs. Like, I had needs and my needs deserve to be met. You know, I should have been held and loved and comforted. And I understand that you couldn't have met my needs because your needs weren't met. But I need you to know that I had needs and it was okay for me to have needs. And I'm going to start figuring out how to meet my own needs. I'm going to start figuring out how to take care of myself so that I don't hate my children, so that I don't resent my children in the same way that you resented us, you know? And the thing is like, you know, as with anything in my healing journey, like I could completely see and understand why mom resented us so much. You know, that kind of way. I have two kids. I have two of them, and I wanted to bloody fucking kill them because they were needy, because they had needs. The thought of having six of them and no money and, you know, just the suffocation of it, you know. And so, yeah, it was just like really yesterday evening. It's less about blame and more about what I can do about it to change this narrative, to change this path. And, you know, I recognize even with the iPad, you know, when they're on the iPad, they don't have any needs. They're not in tune with their needs. So as long as if I have them on the iPad, then I feel safe in the world because they're not going to need me, you know. If they're eating sugar or sweets or whatever, it's like, great, you know, they're not going to need me because they're doped up on sugar. But then, you know, you see this so often, like with people and families, they'll bring their kids off and they'll give them this beautiful, amazing day and they'll give them ice cream or whatever the special treat is. And then the kid will have a tantrum afterwards. And it's like, you know, what? Like, I brought you out for a day and, you know, you're so ungrateful and you're so selfish. What we're saying is, you know, I gave you ice cream so that you would be happy, so that you don't have any emotions or anything that I have to deal with. And now you're having these needs. It's not okay to have needs. Did you not understand that? You know, did you not get the memo? And so I guess why I'm saying all of this is, you know, I realize that, you know, a big part of who I was I needed to feel safe in the world. I needed to be seen and I needed to be heard. And, you know, the podcast and the group was a great channel for me to get those needs met in a way that was also positive for them and for me. But now where I really feel like I'm coming into is I don't want to exist with outsourcing any part of my power, any part of who I am, my happiness, my needs. And yeah, like, you know, I want to, when I reemerge, in whatever field or whatever area I come into, I want to reemerge in a space where, you know, I give only to the amount that is right for my system and my energy, not for a way to receive something back, but just out of a space of, you know, this is where what I have capacity to give right now in alignment with everywhere else in my life, you know? But yeah, like, you know, I really find that for me, this is such a powerful and incredible and exciting turning point for me because of that exhaustion of living that way has been so challenging. You know, it's been so draining. And I'm fucking tired.
Yeah, I've actually had a similar experience recently in the last few months where I've just noticed in so many it kind of got to I'm not sure if it was maybe December, and there was just one break. So how I work is on a roster system. So I work like a week on, a week off, or 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or something like that. On my time off, this particular time off, I was just exhausted, and I just recognized like I am doing so much. And I did my end of year analysis where I write down everything that I've done. And I just noticed like how in every single area of my life, I was maxed out. Like in my job, you know, I'm paid, I'm there to be doing one job, but I also take on these two extra roles. In my private life, like I'm building stuff off grid. So there's always things to be set up or things to be built, or, you know, there's always a million things to do. With my friends, like, you know, I'm helping one friend with a court case. I'm helping another friend with a cert for in training and assessing. I'm helping another friend with a visa. Like, I was just looking at my year and going, I am trying to be worthy in every single aspect of my life. Like, I am trying to do a million things in a million ways for a million people just to feel good enough. And I don't know, I think there was a shift for me as well where I was like, yeah, I don't think I need to do that anymore. Yeah, like it wasn't as big a realization as what you've had. Like a couple of days ago, you said, I feel like the earth was round and now it's flat. Like you were I could just tell your mind was just completely blown. Like you were like, I can't even talk about it right now. And when you can't talk about something, it's like, whoa, this must be massive. So yeah, I definitely don't think that it was like as massive a realization for me. It was more of a gentle, like, yeah, I just don't
No,
think I need to do this. Yeah, like I don't, yeah, I feel like that need inside me is gone. I feel like I'm ready to just be good enough the way I am.
yeah,
And once I kind of realized that, and I looked at all the areas of my life, I was kind of able to go, yeah, like at work, I don't think I'm going to do this extra role anymore. And at home, I don't think I'm going to do this or this, or, you know, like I had these plans of all the things that I wanted to get done on my property. You know what? I think I'm just going to take a break for a bit, like really assess what do I really need to get done and what can I kind of just leave. And with my friends, like I do like, that is one thing that I do really like. I like to be able to help out my friends. I'm very community minded, so I love that. But yeah, like with the podcast, I was like, I think a year is good enough. I think I'm happy with that. I think I feel really proud of myself. I feel like that has increased my
Workload.
my well, yeah, it's obviously increased my workload, but it's increased my self-confidence. It's increased my self-worth, even though we didn't even really get, when you have a podcast, you're not really getting feedback because people listen and you can see numbers, but you very rarely get any kind of feedback. Every now and then we would get a message or something, but that's about it. So it's not about necessarily the feedback, even though from the messages that we did get, they were always very encouraging. It's more so just like, yeah, I feel proud of myself that I was able to commit to doing something on such a regular basis and showing up and being capable of holding conversations like this. And now I feel like that's enough. Like
Yeah.
I've never been, of the two of us, I've never been the one who wants to be in the public eye. Like I always want to be the fly on the wall. Like I'm definitely always the one leading the charge, but I'm kind of like in the background leading the charge, and you're at the front with the sphere. Um, so yeah, even for me, I feel like there's been a shift.
Mm.
Um, and I feel excited about that shift. I feel most excited for myself because trying to be everything to everyone so that you feel worthy is exhausting.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to not be so exhausted. I think I'm my personality type is that I will always be active and busy. Like I don't think, and I think that's exactly the same as you. Like even though you might stop with the podcast, you'll take on something else. Like you're both of us are very driven. Like we
Yeah.
love to take on things to do. We'll just take it on and more of a local thing. Like you'll probably start up a group in your local area or something. Like I don't
No,
know. You
I
definitely want to continue to make connections. And I think that's where both of us, that the connection element of all of this, whether it's the extra work I do at work, whether it's this podcast, whether it's helping my neighbors or my friends, like ultimately what it comes down to for me is I love connecting with people. And I know that you're exactly the same. Like you love the connection element. So
yeah.
I have no doubt that you're going to continue to find ways to authentically connect with people.
Yeah, but
And
I think for me, the shift is actually, you know, instead of it so much necessarily being about, that healing space, what I found so that like, what we talk about, that getting our teeth stuck into something or sunk into something, whatever. I feel like that has now turned to, this challenge and this obstacle of how do I meet my own needs? And in a way, that's not necessarily healing. Like I was saying with the, gem art, like, I am not social. I make no time for anyone in social settings. And I recognized the
that's
reason.
only because you have kids, Ollie, though.
No, I
Before you
know.
had kids, you were very social.
Before I had kids, I was very social. But what I recognized is, I was talking to my friend the last day and I was like, I recognized that I am so I use so much energy making sure that my kids and Rob are happy and making sure that they are, happy all of the time, that I have no energy left for anyone else. And that's not normal. Like it's not normal the amount of energy I use in my relationship with my kids, and it makes me resentful and it makes me angry and frustrated and tired. And so, what I feel is, instead of it's as much being outside of me for this period, I really feel like, with work, I still have my work, and I think my work is what I'm really wanting to I guess lean into more, because I've been having I've clients some of my clients have a very severe trauma, and with the work that I've been doing with them, it has been like monumental, the shifts and the changes and the relief in their symptoms. And that has been something that I've been very, very passionate about, because I felt like my healing was so long, so painful, and so lonely and so isolating. And to see my clients who have severe, trauma, to notice a shift, massive shifts in their everyday experience, is like, that has been filling my soul, filling that connection bucket, feeling that like I feel like I'm on to something that is fucking, groundbreaking in the way of healing.
Yes.
And to be a part of that, to create that. I'm taking it very slow, but to be able to create something that is going to help people heal in a much shorter period of time, and see relief in a much shorter period of time. Like, I'm doing it, most of my clients are one-to-one right now, and I'd love to do more groups and stuff, so maybe in that way. But as for like anything volunteer or community or anything, I do not see any of that being a part of my life this year, because what
Oh,
is
I don't mean like starting a group for volunteer. I just mean like, you know, even joining a group or
oh
something like that. But yes, I absolutely like, I think right now for you in your work with your clients, the fact, that's the thing. And I completely see it as well in my own life. Like, when you can have such a profound impact on one person, like when you can see your client go from struggling to function to starting to thrive, like, it's just, there's no better, feeling and validation than that. So the fact that you're thinking, okay, this is where I'm going to focus my time and energy, I just think that that's amazing. And I really do think that you are at a point where you are definitely breaking ground in what you're doing. You're not doing anything that anyone else is doing. And I've never talked about it on here, but even I do mental health coaching, and it's different to what you do. I also get so much value and encouragement out of the fact that I'm not doing what's normally being done, and it makes, like, it has such beneficial outcomes, like the the quality and the speed at which people can um move through their trauma. And you know we are being, in a way, we're being the help for people that we wanted when we needed help. And
exactly.
what, for me, whenever one of my clients says to me, like, I'm responding to this, like, if this was 2 years ago, I would have been falling apart right now, but because of the work I've done with you, I am fine. Like, it's a really, really difficult situation. It's shit house right now, but I am coping. I'm functioning. There is no better feeling than hearing that. Like, we don't get to see the people on the podcast who
Yeah,
have transformation or any kind of uh yeah, like, we don't get to see or hear about it. But
yeah,
with our clients, when they say things like that, we're like, whoa. And for you, like I think it's such a good idea that you want to really dive into that and make that where your energy goes. I'm ready to, I'm taking on something new at work in my normal job. So I'm not going to be jumping into my mental health coaching business. Like I'm not going to be probably increasing my clients. Um, but I love that that's what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think like, I think as you said, I really, really do feel like the drive for what I want to do is exactly what you're saying. You know, to be the help that I never had, to be that. And, actually like, one of my clients specifically, she has had such profound shifts and changes in her PTSD symptoms that, I really sat back and I reflected on it and I really was like, I want what she has.
Mhm.
I never fully, like I've had psychologists and stuff, but I've always been in charge. Like
Yeah.
I, I've never really let anyone hold me. Not the way that I hold my clients. I've really
Mhm.
never completely surrendered to that point. And so I really was like, you know, I want to get help for myself. I've got this kind of completion phase has actually been really fucking hard. And I was like, but I've done all of this work for so long. I can't go paying someone now to help. And I was like, well, why can't you? What, do you not deserve that? And so I started with the guy Davy Rowe, who was on the other podcast that I interviewed, and I just knew my energy. Like I was like, that's who I want to work with. And it's just been monumental, the change in having someone that you really trust and someone
Mhm.
that you feel so safe with that they can hold you in the way that you need to be held. um it has it has really shifted my need of safety, because it's like for the first time in my life I really feel like someone can catch me if I fall, and that person is paid. So it's not like they're a friend that I'm going to burden. This person, I'm paying them to do their job really, really well and hold me
Mhm.
the way that I deserve to be held. And, I just realized the power of having someone that can do that. And yeah, like, you and I, we both just we want to turn back time and make it so that we got held and supported in all of those ways. And we can't do that. It's just the way that
Mhm.
our journey and our path was. But yeah, like I feel really excited about the possibility of the future. And mainly just because I realized that, you know, yeah, it's okay for me to have needs. And I know
Mhm.
it's such a simple thing. Like if people are listening, it's like, of course it's okay for you to have needs. But
Mhm.
oh, if we pose that question, it's like, well, how do you meet your need for safety right now? How do you
Mhm.
meet your connection or love? Is your connection and love found through food or drugs? Or, so often they're never actually, or needs are very rarely met from the authentic space of our needs being met. It's like, asking for water and being given watermelon. You're never
Mhm.
going to have enough to fill you up. And how can you give to other people around you from an empty cup? And I feel I've been empty for so bloody long.
Mhm.
Um, and I just am like the awakening moment of I get to choose a different path.
Yeah.
I get to choose a different ending to this story. And, last night I wrote down, what are my needs? What is it I need from my own intuitive space? And the first need that I had was to be seen, heard, and respected. And
Mhm.
I recognized that need is, you know, I feel very seen, heard, and respected by Rob, but it's the kids. I feel very unseen, very unheard, and very disrespected by the kids. And, you know, I was noticing, and I was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, what would it take for me to to feel respected by the kids, you know, to feel seen and feel heard? And I realized, you know, I need to have respect for myself before anyone else can respect me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it is not that the kids are disrespecting me. It's that, you know, if I put in a boundary, which is I'm saying, you know, I have a need to be seen and heard right now. I have a need for this boundary to be respected. And my kids don't do it, which kids don't do. I immediately take that as a rejection of my needs. Your needs don't
Mm-hmm.
matter to mom. Meh, you're a loser. I don't want you. I hate you. All of these thought patterns come in, and that pain of my needs not being met creates a monster inside of me that makes me angry and resent them. So I don't, I struggle so much to put in boundaries, to
Mm-hmm.
give myself that respect, because I'm so afraid of the rejection of my needs. But in
Mm-hmm.
truth, if I expect that they're going to reject my needs because, you know, they're going to reject my need for respect and to be seen and to be heard, because kids test the boundaries and that's just the way they are. But I need to respect myself enough to believe fully and wholeheartedly that I deserve for my kids to put on their own socks. I know this is one thing. I keep on saying it to my friends. I'm like, if they just put on their own fucking socks. It's like this battle every day. I am not you. I do not have your feet. These are your socks. You can put them on. But, you know, it's such a simple thing. But really, I recognize that it all comes down to my belief that I'm not worthy of that respect. I'm not worthy of being seen or mattering in my life, in my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of those things I have to give to myself first, and then I can put them in place. And like the second one was fun. That was my set. The top one was to be seen and heard and respected, and the second was to have fun and feel joy, because that was a need I had as a child that I was denied. You know, I wasn't allowed to be free, to have fun, to feel joy. You know,
I
and
like how you said to be free, and then you
yeah,
said to have fun. So go on, yeah.
and yeah, like it was just this I guess at least it was the possibility of, I know that I can have all of these things. I'm going to have to navigate the discomfort of meeting my own needs, because that's one of the things that came in. Why the fuck do I have to be responsible for my own needs? I'm responsible for the kids. I'm responsible for everything else. Why do I have to be responsible to take care of my own needs as well? You know, it's like that
Mm-hmm.
anger at never having them be met. Um, but I feel like, you know, I feel a fire that has definitely started in the last few months within my heart and within my soul, that I deserve so much better for myself, and that
Mm-hmm.
I deserve to take up space in my world and in my life, and to be the main actress in my own show, instead of being, you know, I'm the mother to the boys, and I'm the wife
Mm-hmm.
to Rob, and I'm the friend, and I'm the whatever. But I want to get to this point where I bring all of that energy back and I safely contain it within my sphere, and I don't fucking give it out to anyone, you know, only what feels right for me and that doesn't imbalance me. Um, and so, yeah, the idea of finally feeling whole and feeling, um, feeling like I am the source of all of my own needs is very liberating.
Mm, I love that. I I had the boys down to my property, as you know, and I was just thinking about how hard it would be for you to put in boundaries and meet your own needs with them. Because even with me, like here, the first thing I do in the morning is I get up, I make my cup of coffee, and I sit outside. Like I live surrounded by trees and bushland. I sit and I just drink my cup of coffee and I relax and I listen to the birds, and it's my time of the day to just relax. And when the kids are here, like at first it was like, okay, they want to get going straight away. Like they're up and they're ready to go. And I feel like if I don't go, they're going to be disappointed or whatever. So, I was tending to just go with it. Like, okay, get ready, get going. And I was then starting to, by the end of the day, and as days went on, I was just getting more and more tired. And so this last time that they were down, I just made it the rule, like in the morning for a couple of hours, it's my time to drink my coffee. And they can't ask me for anything. Obviously, if they need something that's life threatening, they can ask me, but they can't ask me to do anything or to go anywhere until I'm finished my coffee. And you know how long it takes me to drink coffee. Half the time I don't even drink my whole coffee. I drink half of it. So like they're like looking in my cup, like still coffee there, but it was so good. And the first they tested it, they were like, "Oh, when are we going, Auntie Jackie?" And I was like, "Look at my coffee. There's still coffee in it. I'm having my coffee." And then eventually they got it. And then we just got into like a nice routine where we'd get up in the morning, I'd make my coffee, I'd make them their breakfast, and then they just potter off.
Yeah.
Like there's so much to do around here to keep them entertained.
Yeah.
So they just go off and do their own thing, and I get to have my morning in peace. And then I was so much more better for the rest of the day. Like I was more patient, I was more like compassionate, I was more everything. And
Yeah.
it really transformed us our time together. Because so like a lot in the past I've just gotten so exhausted when I have them, and I absolutely love having them. That I was like, I need to figure out how to do this so that it's more sustainable, because the boys are like top of my priority list. And the same like going to Kmart, as you know, I hate going to the Kmart with the boys. Kmart's
Yeah.
like Mart or Dunnes stores, because they touch everything and they want to pull everything and they want everything. And it's the most stressful thing in my life to bring them to Kmart.
Oh
And
my
we had
God.
to go to Kmart for something. I was getting them a blow up boat to go swimming with. And again, they were touching everything. And I said, "Boys, if you don't stop touching everything and come to the checkout, I'm going to leave back this boat." And they kept touching everything. I left back the boat and I said, "Right, that's it, we're leaving." So we left and they were like, "Oh my God, what? We didn't get the boat?"
Yeah.
Anyways, later on, I ended up having to go to a funeral with them at last minute. They were so good that I said, "Right, I'll go get you the boat. But you know what? You can't touch anything. We're getting the boat and we're walking back out." Sure enough, went in, they grabbed the boat and we walked back out. And I was like, so many times it's it's me who's making my life hard.
Yeah.
Like it's
That's
me.
mother summed up
Yeah.
though. Like if you can
But
put in
as an
boundaries.
auntie, like I
Yeah.
can't even imagine what I'd be like as a mother. I was like, "Oh my God, no, I can't." Like I can't have the morning to myself, like because
Yeah.
I'm an auntie, and like even though I love them to bits, I don't love them the way you love them. Like they're they're my nephews, and I'll do anything for them, but I'm gonna have my coffee in the morning and chill out. And if they're like unhappy about that, they're just gonna have to live with their feelings,
But the
you know?
problem with the feelings as well for me, you see, is what happened was if I would get up and if I was like, if I was saying, okay, I want time for myself, and you just have to play in whatever yourselves. If they were feeling, they would a lot of the time then they'd start fighting each other. And so Bobby would start hitting Shay. Then I'd feel unsafe in my body. So I wouldn't actually be able to enjoy anything because they'd be beating each other. And then I'd get angry because I've asked for my needs to be met, to be given some time to drink a coffee. They don't meet my needs. I feel rejected and unworthy, that they hate me, that I'm the worst mother in the world and I might as well kill myself. And then I start killing them and shouting at them, and then our morning is horrendous. So instead, I just say, I don't have any needs. I don't need anything at all, ever. So that way I don't ever have to get angry until I get
Yeah,
to the point where I blow.
I think the time frame, like having the actual cup of coffee there that they can look in and see if it's drank yet, I think it really helps them to be like, this isn't forever. It's just until she drinks her coffee.
Yeah.
Or
There is
I'm
an end
gonna,
to this game.
you'll say to them, Auntie Jackie and I are going to talk. I'm going to put a timer on my phone for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, and then they know like there's a timer. I think that really helps them to kind of go, okay, I can't ask for something right now, but in 10 minutes I can. And 10 minutes to a child is like a year.
No, I know.
Wanted to, since this is our last episode, I was wondering if, well, I'll put it this way. I think it would be helpful for me to talk through how I do my sessions with clients.
Yeah.
Because, even though I'm not taking on clients, if people know what way I do it and what way it can be helpful, then potentially they can find someone who can do that. Or parts of it they can do themselves. Like I don't have someone who does it for me. So a lot of the things that I do in my sessions are something that I started doing for myself because I recognized that I needed it. And then I started doing it for my clients because I'm like, well, I recognize that this is really an essential part. So yeah, I'll just talk through what I do, and you know what, I'll be as detailed as I can be, just because again, we're not going to have this opportunity again, so why not? And then if you want to share what you do, you can decide whether you want to do that while I'm talking. Does that sound good? But
Sounds
you
good.
definitely, you don't
I know.
need to.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing that I do with a client is something that I call tracking and mapping. So, well, actually, the first thing I do with a client when they're brand new is I'll just do a free session with them, and I do parts work. So, one form of parts work that's really helpful is internal family systems therapy. And you can do IFS for short. You can do their courses online. So like I did a 6-month online course with IFS. What I do in my practice is a little bit of a combination of IFS and other parts work that I've just come to, through my own practice, find really helpful. But basically, the first session that I do with a client is just a free session, and I'll get straight into parts work. So where a parts work session and a normal talk therapy session is different, both of them are talking for the whole thing. There's no touching or anything like that. It's talk therapy, just like any talk therapy. But what?
Can I ask? So, what you're talking about now, can we reference like that session that you did with me? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that's true. I can link to. So the session that I did with you, that was, because we've been working together and doing sessions with each other for years, that's quite a
Yes.
quick version of it. Like I would go slower than that typically with a new client. But once you get the hang of it, once you start, because it's the same format that every session takes, it's not like you come in, you talk for 30 minutes and then your therapist gives their opinions, and then you talk a little bit more and then you leave. Like a parts work session is not like that. Like you come in, you say what's going on, and I can link to the session that I did with you. You came in, said, this is what I'm dealing with. And then we got straight into parts work. And because you've done it so much, we were able to like do it pretty quickly. So that's what parts work is. It's not, I just want to be really clear that like not all talk therapy is equal, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like, you know, I have no interest in going to a therapist where I sit there, talk for 40 minutes, they give their opinions on something, and then I leave. Like that doesn't, I want to actually be dealing with stuff. And the other great thing I love about parts work is that I'm like, when I'm doing parts work with a client, I'm never giving my opinion on anything because I'm not in that person's shoe. They're giving me a snapshot of what's happening, but there is so much that's going on in their life around that they're not telling me, that
Yeah.
it's impossible for me to really give my opinion on their circumstances. That's the way I feel about it. With parts work, if you listen to the session I did with Alwynn comes up with all of the problems or issues, or she comes up with all of the insight herself. I'm just walking her through a process, a
Yes.
step-by-step process. Just like there's a process to change your tire, there's also a process to navigate your inner world. And that's all I'm doing. So the first session that I do is that, because I want people to understand, like, you're not going to come talk for 45 minutes. I'll say a bit and then you leave. Like, this is deep inner work and you need to understand that. So if they do that first session and they think it's valuable, then what I do is something called tracking and mapping. There's a couple of reasons that I do this, but I'll explain what it is first. So for 7 days, they WhatsApp me 3 times a day. So they choose the times, once in the morning, once in the middle of the day, and once in the night. And the first thing they type is a body check-in. So what sensations or feelings or anything that's coming up in their body. So they might say, I've got tightness in my stomach, I've got a bit of tension in my head, stuff like that. And then the next thing they do is just literally a stream of consciousness. So what I mean by that is they're just going to tell me, they're just going to vomit their thoughts into a WhatsApp message. Like, oh, this is happening and this is happening and I'm feeling this way and I'm feeling this way, and whatever they want to say. And if there's things that are looping, like, you know, oh, I just can't stop thinking about this thing that's happened, if there's something that's looping, anything like that, they just message it. And they do this 3 times a day for 7 days. And that can be every day for 7 days, every second day for 7 days. And they get automatic reminders from me on every day to say, hey, today's tracking day. At the end of that 7 days, then I take all of that data, take all of that information, and I turn it into a map. So basically, I pull out all of the like themes that are happening, areas of their life, things that they're looping on, issues that they're experiencing, and I put it into essentially bullet point format. Because someone who's struggling, just to be able to do that is so difficult. You know, like, kind of vomiting it all out is manageable. That still kind of takes work, but it's manageable. But then to actually sit down and like analyze that information and separate it into themes or topics or issues or things that are reoccurring. Like,
have that mind, Jack, because I wouldn't be able to do that. Like, I would not be able to do that.
That's the way my brain is wired. So it's easier. And even when I'm struggling, it's really hard for me to do that for myself. That's why I say, like, I wish I had someone who would do this for me. Like, because when I'm struggling, it's hard for me to actually do that. But that's how my brain works. So for to do that for someone else is pretty easy. So then we have what's called a mapping call, and I go through this map that I've created with them. And I get them to identify, one, what's the four most intense things that are happening of all of this list, what the four most intense thing that's happening.
Mhm.
And if you had to choose one that you were going to focus on, which one would it be? And then the other question is, of all of these things, what could we work on that would provide the biggest value to your life? And the reason that this is really important is because quite often the things that are going on in our life right now are distracting us from the things that potentially we could be working on that could have a much greater impact on our life. And this is where the normal structure of therapy I find frustrating, because I need someone to kind of focus me when I'm really struggling, because like there's something in my immediate environment right now that's triggering.
Mm.
I struggle to kind of zoom out and go, what's the bigger picture here? Like, what could I work on? What really matters?
Mm.
Like, for example, if the main thing that's stressing someone out right now is to do with like let's say work, like there's this really stressful thing happening at work, blah blah blah, but then you ask the person what really matters, like if you could work on something, what that would make the biggest value and impact to your life, what would it be? And they'll say, my kids, working
Yeah.
on my connection to my kids. So it's not, we're not creating that map because I'm going to then say, well, you should work on your kids. No, not at all. I'm just bringing awareness to what that person needs awareness of. And then they decide for themselves what they
Yeah.
want to work on. And sometimes in that moment, they have to work on that work issue, because that right now is causing so much anxiety or struggle in their life that is overflowing into their personal life, and it's affecting their kids, and it's affecting their home life, and it's affecting everything else. So it's not that I'm trying to be like, okay, this is what's important, this is what we're going to work on. We're creating a map, and that map is something that we can refer back to at all times. Like,
Yeah.
how many times there's been where you've got a session coming up and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And of course you get to the session and you'll always talk about something, but are you talking about what really needs to talk about? When you have
Mm.
a map, all you do is look at your map and you go, okay, I've got a session coming up. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Let me just have a look at this map. You look at your map and go, oh my God, like this is a really good opportunity to actually do some work around how angry I get with my kids, rather
Yeah.
than like waiting until there's this like
Yeah.
situation
Explosion.
which is going to blow up in your face. You can kind of preempt it and go, okay. So that's the first thing that I do with a client. It's called tracking and mapping. And I also do that because you're learning how to monitor your system. You're not like you're not realizing that you're doing it, but
Yeah.
you are, because you're tracking your body. Like somatic work has been a huge part of my personal therapy evolution, and I don't do it because I'm not trained in it, but by simply checking in with your body 3 times a day for 7 days, it is amazing what
Yeah.
you will notice about yourself, and you'll start to like get into the habit of
Yeah.
checking. So there's that, but then there's also the awareness of your inner world, because after you've done this a few times, you start to track automatically. You
Yeah.
start to notice, oh, this theme is coming up again. Oh, this issue is coming up again. And
Yeah.
so, like, a big part of my work is whatever I do with the client, my goal at the end of the day is that they won't need me,
Mm.
because I want them. And that's why everything that I do is very structured.
Yes.
Like tracking and mapping, you can absolutely do tracking yourself, and you can do mapping, because it gets to a point where you've got so many maps now that it's actually just, you're just adjusting your map. Do you get what I mean? So a
Okay.
lot of your map will stay similar. It's just that intensity levels will change. So like maybe in your first map, your work life had an intensity level of 10 out of 10. And now your work life has an intensity of 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10. So the
Yeah.
intensity levels might change, but typically the themes in your life will stay similar. So it
Yes.
does get to a point where you can do your tracking and mapping yourself, and then maybe you just need help once a year to do like a big one, or once every couple of years, just to make sure that you're on
Yeah.
track. And it's the same then once you've got your map and I start to do sessions. I I I tried out a lot of different things with my sessions, because there's so many things that I found in my healing that I found was really helpful and really, yeah, really good. But I kept coming back to, what is my goal? What is my goal here? And my goal is always that the client will get to a point where they don't need me. And I found that when I was introducing different things into the session, because I felt like they were needed and valuable, it was less likely that the client was getting a really strong hold of how to do parts work. Whereas when I just focused every single session on only parts work, they show up, they say what issue they want to work on, we go through the parts work process, and that's the session.
Yeah.
It means that you're constantly repeating the same thing over and over and over and over again, to a point where you're starting to really learn it. You're
Yes.
starting to understand how to do it in your private life. And the additional part of what I do is, because the other thing that I wanted to do when I did my packages, I wanted to make them cheaper for people. I started adding sessions in between, or parts work sessions, which are called focus sessions. And these are sessions where they I I give them the job of doing the first part of the process for parts work. So in our session, if you listen to it, you'll hear the first part of the process is, like, where do you feel that part? Like, for example, I'm stressed out about work. Okay, where do you feel that in your body? What is this part kind of saying or showing you? And it might show you a memory, or it might show you something, or it might bring up something. That first part is very manageable for someone to do. And if they can do that first part themselves, then when they come into the session with me, I can do the difficult part with them. So that
Yes.
very first part they'll do, if I'm never making anyone do anything. But in
Yeah.
this first part, which is the focus session, so they'll have a session with me, and then they'll have a focus session, which is online with someone, but it's free. I've set it up in such a way that you're using a free platform, so they're not having to pay for me to be there to do
Yeah.
this part of the session that really they don't need me for, potentially. Like, obviously, if they don't get time or energy or whatever to do it, then I just do it with them. But it's like, how can I make the money that they're spending in session with me the most valuable money for their time? And the way to do that is for them to take advantage of these focus sessions in between, which I
Yeah.
set up and monitor. So like, I make sure that they book in. Like, I'm like I'm still like the personal trainer. I still have to, when you're struggling, unless someone makes you show up, you're not going to. Like,
Yeah.
and I know that. So it's like, I'm still very much involved. I make sure that they sign up for their focus session. I make sure that they attend it. And then they have to send me the homework at the end of that session.
Yeah.
And if they cancel, I see, because part of what I do, I sound very controlling. Part of what I do is I set up an email for them that is just for our sessions, so that
Yeah.
they have their email address and they also have the Google Drive associated with that address. So that in their Google Drive, I have their schedule for the package. I have the dates that they have to sign up, that they have to do different things. I have the notes from all of our sessions, because I take notes for all sessions, so that they have all of their notes from all of their sessions. So like I can see if they cancel their focus session, an email will pop up on my phone to say so and so has cancelled, at which point I can go, hey, is everything okay? Again, I'm not there to force anyone to do anything. I just know that if someone doesn't, like, your kid is gonna, your screaming kid is telling you they want something, your husband is something else, your friend is something else, your work needs you to come in on time. If you don't have someone in your healing corner going, hey, do this, show up for this, I'm, like, you've got your kid trying to pull your energy in this way, you've got your partner, you've got your work pulling your energy in this way. If you don't have someone pulling your energy in the healing way, you won't do it. A lot of people who are really struggling and they've only got so much battery, they just won't do it. And that's the reality of the situation. And that's why you end up paying for a therapist. So that's why I'm kind of like monitoring to make sure that they set up and show up for their focus session. But if they don't, it's totally fine. Like, I just go, okay, that's no problem. We'll do it in the session.
Yeah.
So the package goes for 3 months, and and it goes tracking and mapping 7 days, and then it goes parts work session with me, focus session, parts work session, focus session, and it goes on like that for 3 months. And then at the end of the 3 months, we do another 7 days of tracking, and we do a map, and we compare what has changed in the map and what is still as where the intensity levels are, what the person wants to work on, so on.
I love it. I love how structured you are, Jack. It's so beautiful. Like, as in, it's so it's got its start, it's got its middle, it's got its end. And I'm literally going, holy fuck, I don't even take notes. That I literally in my sessions, I literally do F all, and I mean it. Like, like, as in, with regards the amount that you put into it. I'm too lazy to even set up a bloody Calendly booking invite. I'll just message people like, yeah, how about this day, whatever. I'm so laid back.
I know, but it also makes it also helps me, like, as you know, my booking tool, everyone goes on and just books through the portal. So
brain
they
work
book in, they pay, they get their invite. If they need to reschedule or cancel, they do it. Like, it has nothing to do with me. All I do is I get an email saying you've got a booking session booked, and the calendar invite automatically goes into my calendar, and the Zoom link automatically goes into my Zoom. Like, I don't do anything.
Yeah.
The system does everything for me.
I know, set up
but
the
that's
system
to make my life easier.
Yeah. You have
it's
to set
a
up
lot harder with
what you did.
I know. It is a lot harder though when you've got kids. You don't have the same freedom of time that I do. So the 3-month session is what a client has to do to start with me. After the 3-month session, they can just book in whenever they want. They don't have to have a package. They can just book in for a session whenever they feel like it. Obviously, if they want another package, they can. But really, that first 3 months is just to set us up on the right foot, to make sure we're working on the right things. And then after that, they can just go on, and if they see availability, they can just book in, and they don't have to have anything pre-organized or pre-set up, which works well for me because I'm not available like you are on a weekly basis because I actually have a normal job.
Yes.
So
Normal.
it's not that, like, I go to work at a normal job, so I just open availability in my calendar whenever I have time.
Yeah.
So
And we
my
put them,
clients don't get like regular weekly sessions. They just get sessions whenever I'm available.
yeah,
So that's how that works. And then just once a year they have to do a package with me to like make sure that we're still on track, but otherwise they get to choose how
yeah,
they want to book it. The additional part that I'm going to do, I'm just building a deck at the moment for my TP on my property, is that after they've done that 3 months package, if they're local to my area, they can come and basically rent out my TP if they want to do a personal MDMA therapy journey. So I don't have any uh influence in their journey. I'm just holding the space. I'm not guiding them. I'm not providing the MDMA. I'm not doing anything like that. I just hold the space. Like, this idea came to me because when I did a lot of traveling, I went to a place that did personal silent retreats where basically you just rented like a little cabin, and they took all of your electronics, and they were your emergency person, and you could just go and have your own personal silent retreat where you just didn't talk for however many days you wanted, and you just meditated and went inwards, and they just held the space. They just held a safe space. And in that place they also gave you 3 meals a day, but that's not what I'm thinking of doing. I can't cook a piece of toast. But what I'm basically just offering is 24 hours to use the TP tent. The people would give me their electronics and go into the TP tent with their notebook or whatever they want to bring. And then I just hold a safe space, and I'm an emergency contact, and I'm around in case of an emergency. But they do their own personal journey.
yeah,
And then but I only offer that to people who have done the 3 month package with me, because I want to make sure, and if I felt like I wasn't comfortable with them doing that after the 3 month package, I would say, look, I
yeah,
don't feel comfortable yet holding that space for you.
yeah,
But doing parts work can be hugely beneficial for doing MDMA therapy, especially when you're doing it by yourself.
yeah,
Like, having an understanding of how to do parts work is
definitely.
nominally helpful. So that's why I'm saying I would only be offering that to people who had done the 3 month package, because at that point they have a very solid understanding of how it works. And they might not even be able to necessarily go through the whole process themselves. But if you but they'll go on MDMA, and by God they will. Like, it's like everything that you've learned in that 3 months will just come back to you, and you'll just know what to do. And that's part of why MDMA is so helpful, because there's stuff that you don't even realize you'll know how to do, and then you'll take MDMA and you're like, oh wow, I actually do know how to do this.
Yes.
So that's something that, once my neighbors and I have been working on the deck for the last 3 days. We'll be finished in another day, and then we'll set up the teepee and set up everything. But that's something that I will offer to people. And again, I'm saying that because I know a lot of people out there are thinking about trying MDMA by themselves, because they don't have a way or means to do it with someone. And the reason I'm saying this is because I really recommend that you do work with a therapist before you do that. Because beforehand, even if it's not a parts work therapist or an IFS therapist or someone who does inner child work, even if it's not that, any therapist, because you need to make sure that you have the support you need after you do that MDMA work. We didn't have that. And again, everything that I'm trying to offer to people is something that I wish I had. Like, I have no interest in guiding people in MDMA therapy. That's not anything I want to do. But I recognize that people need support and space. I recognize what I needed. In the time, I didn't want anyone to guide me, but I needed someone to hold a safe space for me. I needed someone to be a safe container. And now looking back, I wish I had the therapist I have now. I wish that I had been working with her, even though my therapist is pretty adamant that she does not recommend or condone taking MDMA. But still, it doesn't have to be about, just having someone, because at the end of the day, after the session, it's not about the MDMA. It's about what came up and what you need to integrate and what you need to work through. So yes, basically what I'm saying is, please, 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 if you're thinking about doing any kind of psychedelic assisted journey yourself, please get support before you do that. Build a relationship with a therapist or a counselor or someone who can be there for you. And if you can find a buddy who's willing to kind of hold that space for you, that would be great. Like if you are like, okay, I'm going to do this session regardless of whether anyone helps me or not, if your mind is made up to do a psychedelic assisted session yourself, if there is someone who you think would be open to just being in the house, like they don't need to be involved at all. Like they're just essentially babysitting that space. And if that's not comfortable for you, that's fine. But yeah, I really encourage people, if they're thinking about doing something like that, to have support beforehand. Don't wait until afterwards to start finding that support. Build a relationship with the therapist beforehand, and then do whatever you're gonna do. Nobody's gonna stop anyone from doing what they need to do. You and I just decided to do MDMA ourselves. We were nothing and nobody was going to stop us from doing that. So I recognize that everybody out there is going to do whatever they're going to do. But just learn from two people who have been through it, who have done it alone. Like we had each other, obviously, but get support.
Yeah. I found loads of I've talked to a few people recently, and they were like talking about different things, journeying and mushrooms and whatever. Mushrooms is so much more popular than MDMA in the healing space. Yeah. From what a lot of people have done mushrooms, not as many MDMA. But yeah, like, they'll talk about and who did you do it with? And I was like, me. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, did you not have anyone guide you or hold space, whatever? I was like, nope, just me. Like, just flying it, jumping off that cliff without an anchor, But, I totally understand and respect and love that, I believe that was definitely a part of our path, definitely part of my own path, because, I really learned how to, I guess, what was, I really learned from the inside out. And again, that's kind of like a crashing against a wall kind of scenario. It's not a clean cut process. And obviously, like, I've been with many people who have done MDMA. If people I know have chosen to do MDMA, I'm very open to guiding people, no problem.
You're so, yeah, like I think that's really it's admirable that you're willing to sit with your friends and do that, because I find that it's a lot to give to sit with someone. It's, yeah, I just think it's really admirable. Sorry, go on.
Well, I get paid for the work. I just don't get paid for the MDMA, as in I'm not doing the MDMA, you know? So they, like, I have a lot of friends that work with me, you know? And so if they want to do it, they can pay me for my time. But, you know, I was talking to someone recently and I was like, we were just talking about the different psychedelics, and it was really interesting. Before I even knew that I said it, I had said, you know, MDMA, you know, I know that they say that MDMA is not a spiritual drug, but for me, MDMA feels like a long lost sister. I understand MDMA so deeply. I understand when someone's on MDMA, you know, I understand where they're blocked, why they're blocked. I understand, you know, and I'm not telling them what to do. It's like they're in whatever world they're in. It's like I can feel, you know, like, for example, I'll have clients, you know, that will say, you know, nothing's coming up, it's not working, you know, and they've done it before by themselves, and they're like, yeah, this is what happens, and I'm like, oh, great. So I want you to sit with that nothingness, you know. I was like, I know what that nothingness is, you know. And so I was like, you know, just sit with the nothingness and be with it. Just allow it to just overwhelm you. What color is it? And after a few minutes, it breaks into something completely different. Like, it
Mhm.
transforms. It's it's the most magical experience that I've ever had. And to guide people on it is the most magical experience that I get to be a part of. Because, you know, you're watching people. I feel like, honestly, it's watching people walk back to themselves. And I get to be a
Mhm.
part of that journey. And the only part that I play really is to navigate the bumps and the obstacles. That's
I
it.
think I think though you're minimizing what you do, because I feel like what I do, like if I'm, for example, when you've done MDMA, I've guided you, I feel like that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of navigating the bumps, but not what you're gifted at understanding more. Like your intuition is off the charts compared to mine. Like we've been doing I've been on MDMA and you've been guiding me, and you just go, I wonder if this is something. And it's like, I am completely unaware of it. And then you say it, and then I'm like, oh my fucking God. Like, and you're so good at knowing when there's a part of me that's distracting myself, because that's one of the biggest problems I find on MDMA is like distractor parts come up. Or maybe it's just like, like when you go into a supermarket and you're looking for sugar, when you're not on MDMA, you just see the sugar. But when you're on MDMA, you see everything in the aisle. And
Yes.
it can be very overwhelming. And like you can get distracted by the icing, like rather than going and getting your bag of sugar. And so I find that you're exceptionally good at like knowing, yeah, you're being distracted by the icing right now. We need to
Yeah.
get back to the sugar.
That's
I
me.
don't have that. I don't
Yeah.
have like I'm good at like systems thinking. So I'm
Mm.
good at like walking through the process. I'm good at asking good questions, but not like not you have a knowing that is a gift.
Mm.
That's why I
Yeah.
think you're so good at guiding.
Yeah. And I think when I said, you know, it's when I said that, like, MDMA is like my long lost sister, I feel like like it's like something when I'm in session, and if someone's on MDMA or something, it's like I feel it's like I feel everything that is happening. I see everything that's happening in a way that in a way that's definitely more stronger than even my normal intuition. I feel so much more connected to my intuition and to another person's soul and their path and what they're experiencing when they're on MDMA. It's like the MDMA becomes a channel between us or something. And one of the things that I really also wanted to highlight, because I've been thinking a lot about suppressed memories recently, and it's really brought it back up for me about this belief system out there about the implantation of memories, or the implantation of suppressed memories, whatever they may be, abuse or whatever. And I was just really thinking about that, and I was like, there has never been, like, I've had clients who've had memories, suppressed memories come up, whatever, during sessions and everything. And, I was like, there has never, ever been a moment where, like you said, where I've given advice or opinion on another person's trauma.
Yeah.
I give my whole pathway, the whole experience and premise, I guess, of my work is essentially to create such a safe space that, that whatever that person is experiencing, whatever inner child or whatever part is really frightened or that they cannot access on a normal basis, what I feel is it's like their inner children or their parts feel so safe with me that they can access deeper levels of their own trauma than they would be able to access outside of the session. But I don't ever, again, I'm completely guided by what their experience is. I don't, like you, I don't ask any questions really about their current situation or their current lives. I don't, well, I'm definitely more relaxed in that way because I believe that a person's consciousness will let us know exactly what we need to work on and exactly what the answer is. And it's so interesting. A person might come in with a specific issue, they might be having really hard time with their kids or something like that. And we unconsciously could think that the answer is X, Y, or Z. But when you leave it up to the subconscious, when we allow the subconscious to show us in the same way as you do kind of parts work, I do similarly with inner child work. But, I allow that space for the subconscious to show us the way. And I have nothing to do with that. And so often the root is so far from where we believe the root was that I couldn't make it up and they couldn't even make it up. And I think with MDMA, a lot of my clients or some of my clients will do smaller doses of MDMA if they're in a deep space of a wounding and trauma, or even not. But if they want to really move through some deeper layers, they will now do, because I started doing microdosing of MDMA because my guides had recommended it.
Well, they're not necessarily microdoses because you feel it. A very small dose.
Okay,
Yeah.
a very small dose. And so I had been guided to do small doses, which I was not interested in. But anyways, got to a point where I was like, fuck it, I'm going to try it. And I tried it. And I wouldn't recommend it for anyone else, to be truly honest. Like it was a challenging process to microdose. I was around my kids and everything, or I say take a small dose, but it really enabled me to separate myself from the flooding that I experience all day, especially with the kids, to really have a better sense of what was happening in real time. Because when I was doing big doses of MDMA at nighttime, I wasn't triggered. So I wasn't really connected to what was happening in the present moment.
I get ya.
But when I was doing the smaller...
So when you're doing the bigger doses as well, you're getting this euphoric. So stuff can come up that's difficult, but it's balanced with this feeling of euphoria, because once you take over a certain amount, and it's different for every person, of MDMA, once you take the higher dose that kind of breaks you through, they say, like it's a breakthrough. Then you have this like feeling of euphoria. So things can come up that are really difficult, but it's balanced with this feeling of euphoria. And so, it can be, that's why when you do it by yourself, it can still be manageable. But if you take smaller doses, you're not getting that feeling of your euphoria, but you're still getting the benefits of how you can work through trauma. But it's just, you just don't have it balanced. It's like you're doing it, I don't know if you would describe it this way, but it's like a boot camp for your therapy. Like you're getting this like injection of energy and progress, but you're not getting it balanced with the euphoria. So when you work with your clients, it's like you're holding that space for them, so they don't have the euphoric feeling, but they do have you're replacing the euphoria. Why is it that that's working so much better than doing the bigger doses with your clients?
When I find when people have the bigger doses, they're so much more likely to get into this happy, or like that distracted kind of like they are more detached from the truth of the pain of the situation, which is good in the moment. But with clients, if they take, say, that smaller dose, what happens is they are separate enough from the fear of the experience to re-experience it in a safe way, but not so separate that they are detached from the fear and the pain of it. So we get to work so when my clients are in session, we move very quickly anyways. My sessions are very deep, even without MDMA, but essentially if they take the smaller dose, there's a few parts of it that I see it as the breakthrough in healing, because there's a few elements to it. There is it's the person feels more empowered, more in control of their own experience when it's a smaller dose. They don't feel like, it's all up there in the sky and it's God or universe or angels or whatever. It's not such an out there experience. And so they can own it more for themselves as their own experience. And secondly,
and part of what's important about that from a parts perspective is one of the problems with taking large MDMA doses is that after the day after, when you come down, there are parts that struggle a lot with the vulnerability that you exposed in yourself. Because when you're in that euphoric state, like you can become really really open and vulnerable. And the reality is that when you come back down, you might have what's called in parts work protectors, who then step in and go, oh my God, that was so unsafe. You were so exposed. You were so vulnerable. And they double down. So the day afterwards, you can have what I call the vulnerability hangover, where these parts just like get super like frightened, and therefore will just like it can be quite turbulent for a person. So
and very
when you're having
traumatizing.
and very re-traumatizing. So when you're having a smaller dose, you're not getting to that point where you're like super exposed and vulnerable, because you're still very much present. You're not kind of going into that euphoric state. Like the stuff is coming up and you're getting a little bit of detachment from it, so that you can kind of see it rather than feel like you are it. But you're not getting to that point where afterwards you're going to have this massive attack of protector parts who are like, you shouldn't do that again, that was so dangerous, like, and really like doubling down and shaming you, you know, like there can be a lot of shame
Well,
and guilt and stuff.
there is a lot of intensity following the session, you know, so following the session, people feel a deep intensity, you know, as because it's enough of a dose where they are very much in it, but not enough that, you know, they would wouldn't be they wouldn't be able to get out of bed, or like they'd be able to still function and do things, but it's enough to be really in that tunnel of focus and being able to work through it. But you know, what I find,
Like I said, a boot camp. It's rather, instead of going for like a personal training session at the gym, it's like a boot camp session where it's
yeah,
like much more full on. So of
yes,
course that's going to be more intense.
yeah. And I think, like,
So
you
that
know,
was the first thing.
yeah, the first thing. And then so the second part is what I found with people doing the smaller doses and, you know, with being guided or in session or whatever, what I find is we have that access. So if we think about emotion, stored emotion in the body, a lot of the time with MDMA on the full dose, you can access definitely emotion, you can access pain and stuff. But when a client is, you know, in a smaller dosage, they have way more access to a lot more of the emotional pain and the emotional fear and the emotional sadness. And I get to then, the MDMA gives them kind of the strength and the courage to sit with that for a longer period of time. And so when they're in session, like generally if they do decide that that's the route they're taking, like they'll take they would take it, you know, before like I start my session with them. And then, you know, same for you with regards, I want this to be as money sensitive as possible, you know, because if someone wants me to guide them for a full MDMA session, that's about 6 hours, 7 hours, 7 hours of my time, which is very expensive, you know, when you
Yeah.
think about the grand scheme of finances. And for what you get,
The reality is those first few hours, they're just on such a high that you can't do any deep work with them, but you still need to be there. You know,
yes,
like I always say, like anyone who's asked me about doing the full session, I say those first few hours, just enjoy it. You know,
yeah.
like, you know, it's such a beautiful, euphoric, happy time. Like
On your experience, my first one wasn't like that. My first one was my CPTSD, my symptoms of PTSD literally sat on me.
I wonder, did you not take enough?
I don't know. I'm not
I don't
sure.
know. But generally, when you have a high dose, the
Mm.
first hour in general can be very euphoric, and it's quite hard to get a client grounded enough in reality to do any
Yeah,
real work with them. So you
yeah,
kind of have to just let them ride
yeah,
out that part until the MDMA starts to drop off, and then you start to like they start to get more grounded in reality and you can do some more work with them. So yeah, like they're paying for 7 or 8 hours of your time, but like they're not using you to the best of your value for that whole time
yeah, definitely. And I think then, you know, so we do generally 3 hours, then 3 hours, and then,
with
you
a
know,
smaller dose.
with a smaller dose. And then, you know, I hadn't been doing it previously, but I've got my an ice bath again. And, you know, my guides had recommended that after every one of those, you know, sessions, that I guide the person through the ice bath, because, you know, they were saying you need to make sure that they're fully back into their body
And
before they
in
leave. And so I was like, okay, that's perfect. Like that really sits really well with me, because
yes,
I wasn't needed past that point, but I wasn't so comfortable with, you know, with the completion of it either. So, you know, that was really a perfect aspect of it. And not only that, a lot of people that I work with have clients, it's very time sensitive, you know, and so to be able to do
I mean
these
they have
things.
children. You said you're a lot of the people you work with have clients.
Yes, they have children. And so like, it might be like a school day, or whatever, like where they can come and
Yeah,
then they've
they
been
don't have 8 hours to take to do
exactly.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And instead of it being, could you imagine someone coming to me for 8 hours a week? That's
Yeah,
it's way too much.
that's
Too much for the family, for finances. But like people have been able to manage this. Like, obviously it's a bit more costly, but I've noticed that in my clients who have chosen to go that route, the 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 difference in the speed, the rate, the changes in their actual physical existence, their reality, whatever, with their kids, with their nervous systems, like the changes that we're seeing is for me, like I'm just in awe. I'm just so excited. Some people, and again, it won't work for everyone, which is totally fine. And the people who feel like that's what they need to do, that's what they
Mhm.
need to do. They're in alignment with them. But with with processing, what I've noticed is me being able to walk through those really dark spaces with them and hold
Mhm.
them in. A lot of the time when we're in these type of therapies, we're trying to rush through it. If I do MDMA by myself, I'm kind of like trying to rush to the end of it. I don't really want to feel it all. Whereas I really stay with them. I'll know if their protector is trying to move on. Their protector might bring in another image or something else. And I'll be like, okay, I want you to just acknowledge that part and just say, oh, thank you. But I'm just going to stick with this for a little bit longer because you've got this. So it's really giving them the confidence and the safety to be in that space and feel it. And also the awareness from an outsider, because for me, I'm able to say to them, I promise you, you will not, this will end. I promise you that this feeling and experience that you're having is temporary. It will pass. And if you just allow yourself to feel it, you can move through it. And other things that I started doing as well was touch. So obviously if they're okay with it, like I might put some pressure, on their back if they're lying forward or whatever, or on their legs, more so for them to feel the edge of their body, to feel that they are in a physical body, just different things like that, that has been so interesting, which I have I have experienced. Rob did it for me one day, where he put that pressure on me, and it was just monumental in me feeling the edge of limits of my body, of me feeling more
You mean
safe.
pressure with your hand?
Yeah, I'm pressure with my hand. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, there's those elements. And then, afterwards, initially it's quite, yeah, it's big, because when you have a big session like that, obviously always going to be more tired, always going to be more full on
Yeah.
in the evening. But, for the benefits that people get from it,
Mhm.
they're willing to kind of go through the roughness of the evening. By the next day, generally, they do feel lighter,
Yeah.
which is a great way that I've experienced it. But yeah, so like, I
You
don't
said
know.
there, Ollie, like it's not going to be for everyone. And that's not just because like some people don't, it's kind of a, a faster track to healing trauma in a way, because you're moving through stuff at a deeper and quicker pace because the MDMA is assisting in that. And you're assisting in that, and the sessions are longer and stuff like that. Um, but there might be some people who can't do it also because they might be on SSRIs. So MDMA won't work if you're on an SSRI. An SSRI is an antidepressant. There's a lot of people who are on them. So even if you're not able to do smaller doses of MDMA or full doses, the sessions that you do are still essentially the same, like whether they come to you with MDMA or without, you're doing a lot of the same work. It's just that
Oh, it's
with
exactly the same.
MDMA, it's going faster
Yeah.
in a lot
With
of ways.
the only difference between when a
Or
client comes
deeper.
to me with versus without is when they come to me without, the like we would call them protectors. There is more of an edge to the consciousness. We're really having to, you know, take more time to create more safety so that those kind of walls can come down, and then we're in there and it's a bit slower. Then we have to really kind of give time for the walls to come down, and it's just a slower process of moving through everything. But with the MDMA, you know, because they don't have so with MDMA, it reduces the amygdala, which is the fear part of the brain, the fight, flight, or freeze response. And so when that's not so hyperactive or hyperactivated, it's much more quicker to move through. And I don't believe that anyone could move through. Like, I believe that my clients feel very safe with me. And so they know that if they end up doing, I don't do MDMA. I don't allow anyone to just do MDMA. They have to have worked with me for a while so that they feel safe with me and I feel safe in their capacity before I can allow that, you know?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, like, you know, they feel very safe in my energy, in my space. They know their parts and their inner children are very, very, you know, used to me. So much so that like I had one of my clients recently, you know, and we were working, she was away and we were working together and we were finishing up the session. And I was like, you know, do you feel like that's complete? We got through loads. And I was like, do you feel like, you know, that's complete? And, you know, she was like, yeah. And I was like, no, it's not. I was like, I feel it. There's something here. And I was just give me a second. And it was amazing. I could feel her inner child calling to me. You know, her inner child was saying, please don't leave me here. Please don't leave me here. Please don't. And I was getting really emotional. And I was like, oh my God. And it was just a part that didn't expose itself during the session, but this part felt so safe with me because we've been working together for so long that I was able to feel her that cry, feel that grief. And when I brought it, you know, when I kind of just said that that's what I was feeling, that's what I was experiencing, that was coming up, then, you know, we were able to bring a lot more awareness to the deeper level of what was going on. That this part was afraid. She was back in her home house. Like this client was back in her home house where all of the trauma happened. And this little child within her was like, I'm stuck here. I'm never going to get to leave. Like, no one's going to save me. All of those same beliefs and patterns and pain and grief, you know, was essentially bogging her down. But my client was so in survival mode, trying to get through the experience of being at home, that she wasn't able to, you know, have conscious awareness of this part, essentially. And, you know, once I was able to feel her and feel I literally just felt like there was this little child just literally trying to run at me to wrap her arms around me and say, please don't leave me here. And I was able to, you know, communicate, okay, can you help me so that we can, you know, communicate to her that you're not staying there. She's not staying there. You don't live there anymore. But, you know, I think that is the power of having someone that is safe, because it's not as much about our consciousness, this adult self of who I am. It's about the parts within me, the wounded little parts of me. That's who the therapist really needs to connect with. And I think that's where my strength is I see way beyond a person in adult form. I see most as, you know, as a part, a wounded child, a wounded part. And I bring more love, attention, awareness, compassion to these parts, to parts that have not been seen or heard before. And they are always my priority, not the adult self as such, but the parts within, you know?
Yeah. And that's what I was getting at earlier when I was saying, like, you're gifted at, it's really hard to describe it, but like what you just described there about, you know, the little girl saying, oh, don't leave me here. Like, that is intuition on another level. Like, I've seen that so many times. I've seen you do that so many times and be completely spot on. Like, I've lost track of how many times you've done that, and it's mind blowing. That's something that, yeah, I definitely can't do. And that's something where you are particularly gifted. And that's why I think then on MDMA, you're so good at guiding.
And it's just so,
we
yes, you have to
we've gone
end.
for 2 hours, Ali. And like I said, I was like, look, if this is going to be our last episode, let's just get details. So I'm very happy that we've gotten
And,
details.
let's put, would you be open to putting your, like, do you want to put the Movo on, like, in case people want to try, or do you not want to do that right now? Because, you're in a space where, you might not be taking, or you won't be taking on clients.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about it. This
Yeah.
new job, if I take it, will be 1 week on, 1 week off, which just doesn't leave me a lot of time.
Yes.
I feel like I don't, and I don't know yet if I'll take it. So I
Yeah.
can't really make a decision about that right now.
Yeah. Well,
I'll
would
have
you
a
like
think about
your
it.
email just in case anyone does show interest, and you can like get back to them or whatever? Would
Yeah,
you?
maybe I could do that. Yeah,
Yeah. And I'll do the
that's
same. I
probably.
don't I don't have a booking system or anything, and I am not setting it up. So yeah, I can put my Alwynn Hines coaching email if you can put it in the show notes, Jack.
Yeah,
And
I'll
if
put it in the
someone's
show notes.
interested, they can get in touch with me, whatever. And we can figure it out. But yeah, I'm pretty busy now. Which is really good. So yeah, I won't put up any booking systems or anything. I'm good enough as I am. I'll get to the point where I make all of that a priority, but right now it is not a priority. So
Yeah, and I think as well, once the kids are both set up in school and on a regular schedule, it'll be much easier for you to have a booking system, because at the moment they're both in, Shay's in daycare some days, Bobby's in school
yeah,
some days, and it's just not so simple for you to know when you're going to have availability right now. Whereas the time will come when both kids will be in school 5 days a week, and you'll just have a much better understanding of your schedule.
definitely. So sis, this is our last one. Thank you for joining me, and thanks everyone for listening and being a part of our journey.
Yeah,
Stay
thanks
tuned.
everybody.
Stay tuned for our rebirth, whatever that looks like in maybe a year or two.
Who knows? I'm just glad that we did this. I'm glad that you gently pushed me to step outside my comfort zone. And yeah, I'm really proud of what I've done and proud of what you've done. And
Yeah,
I think
could
that,
have done it with you. That is for sure.
yeah, and I
Nothing.
couldn't have done it without you. And I'm excited for us. I'm excited for whatever comes
Yes.
next.
And do you know what I'm really
Um,
for?
well,
Coffee. I'm dying for a coffee. I know we're on live podcast, but everyone, I am addicted to coffee, and I haven't had coffee this morning. I need my coffee.
okay, well, you go have a coffee. I'm going to go have a second cup because I just feel like it. And everybody out there, go have a coffee or a cup of tea or get yourself a drink and just sit and relax for a while.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. It'd be a long mahaguf. Have a beautiful day.